I've always believed that our lives can be marked by moments of unexpected clarity. For me, one such moment came when I was just about to walk down the aisle. I'm Emily Jones, a 29-year-old boutique manager in Chicago, and as I reflect on the journey that brought me here, I can't help but think about the pivotal role my family played, especially my brother, Michael. Growing up, Michael was my rock. He was 7 years older than me and always seemed to have everything figured out. I remember him as a protective and caring big brother, someone who would stand up for me no matter what. He was a successful real estate developer in Los Angeles, a city known for its glamour and fast pace. Michael had always worked hard, and despite his demanding career, he made time for his family, especially me. Our parents were loving and supportive, but Michael's success often made him the focal point of our family gatherings. I was never jealous, though. I admired him for his achievements and his unwavering support. He had this way of making you feel safe and cherished, and it was no different when it came to my life decisions. When I got engaged, I was thrilled to share the news with my family. My fiancé and I had been dating for a few years, and he had recently proposed in the most charming way. It felt like the perfect start to the next chapter of my life. I knew I wanted Michael and his wife, Jessica, to be a part of it. They were coming to Chicago for the engagement dinner, and I couldn't wait to introduce them to my fiancé. Jessica was a beautiful woman, stunning in fact. She had been a former actress before becoming a full-time housewife. From what I had seen, she was glamorous and sophisticated, but there was something about her that never quite sat right with me. Maybe it was her obsession with material things, or the way she often seemed detached from family events. Regardless, Michael loved her deeply, and that was enough for me. I wanted to make a good impression and hoped that Jessica would be as excited about the wedding as I was. The evening of the engagement dinner, the atmosphere at the restaurant was electric. My fiancé was charming, and our families were mingling and celebrating the upcoming nuptials. Michael and Jessica had flown in earlier that day, and I was looking forward to seeing them. But when they arrived, Jessica was noticeably absent. "Where's Jessica?" I asked Michael when he greeted me with a warm hug. "She's on her way," Michael replied with a forced smile. "She got caught up with some last-minute errands. She'll be here soon." I didn't think much of it at the time. The evening continued smoothly, filled with laughter, toasts, and happy conversations. It wasn't until after the dinner, when I received a phone call from Jessica, that things started to take a turn. "Emily," she said, her voice dripping with irritation. "I can't believe you didn't bring me any of the sweets from the hotel where the dinner was held. I heard they have the best pastries." I was taken aback. "Jessica, you didn't even come to the dinner," I reminded her. "Why would I bring you sweets?" She huffed on the other end. "Well, I just thought you would. It would have been a nice gesture." Her call was a stark reminder of her self-centered attitude. It was as if the celebration was only important if it served her interests. I could tell that Michael was trying to keep the peace, but I knew that his wife's behavior was a source of stress for him. The next day, while I was working at the boutique, a familiar face walked in, Jessica. She was with a younger man who looked vaguely familiar, but whom I couldn't place. Jessica introduced him as a former colleague from her acting days. They were chatting like old friends, and I couldn't help but notice how casually Jessica was interacting with him. She was asking for discounts on various items, which was odd since she was known for her extravagant taste. Even more unsettling was the way she let the young man pay for her purchases. It was as if she was treating the boutique as her personal shopping spree, with no regard for the small business that was trying to serve her. I was disturbed by what I saw, and felt a strong urge to tell Michael. But how would he react? The last thing I wanted was to cause trouble, especially given how much he was already dealing with. I debated whether I should say anything, but deep down, I knew I had to be honest. Michael deserved to know the truth, even if it meant confronting some uncomfortable realities. As I continued with my day, my thoughts were consumed by the realization that something was deeply wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that the surface was only the beginning of a much darker story. The way Jessica had acted, her disregard for our engagement dinner, her behavior at the boutique, made me question her loyalty and integrity. Little did I know, These suspicions would soon lead to revelations that would shake our family to its core and test the very essence of our bonds. But for now, all I could do was brace myself for what lay ahead, knowing that the truth might be even more painful than I had imagined. It was a sunny afternoon in Chicago when I decided to confront Michael about what I had seen. I had spent days wrestling with the decision, but I knew it was important. Michael had always been there for me, and now I needed to return the favor. I hoped that sharing my observations about Jessica might help him address any issues in his marriage. I called Michael and asked if we could meet up at a cafe nearby. "Of course," he said. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something, too." When we met, I could see the stress etched on his face. We ordered coffee and found a quiet corner. As soon as we were settled, I took a deep breath and started, "Michael, I saw Jessica at the boutique the other day." His eyes widened slightly. "Oh, what happened?" I recounted the events as honestly as I could. She was with a younger man, someone she introduced as a former colleague. They were shopping and she was asking for discounts. The man paid for her items. It just fell off. Michael's expression grew troubled. "I see. I'm sorry you had to witness that. I've been aware of Jessica's behavior for a while now, but I've been so consumed with work that I haven't been able to address it." My heart sank as I listened to him. "Michael, you deserve to be in a relationship where you feel valued and respected. I think you need to have an honest conversation with Jessica." He nodded, though he looked exhausted. "I know, but there's something else I need to tell you. It's important." Before he could elaborate, I noticed how weary he looked. The conversation ended with a promise from Michael to consider what I had said and to address the situation with Jessica. I left the cafe feeling both hopeful and anxious about the future. A few weeks later, the news hit hard. Michael had been diagnosed with stomach cancer. The diagnosis was a shock, and the doctors explained that it was a result of years of stress and overwork. Michael's condition deteriorated quickly, and he decided to spend his remaining time focusing on his family and his legacy. During this period, I could see Jessica's behavior becoming even more erratic. She seemed more interested in shopping and social events than supporting Michael through his illness. It was painful to watch. Despite the strain on our family, Michael's focus remained on setting things right before he left us. As Michael's health worsened, he made arrangements to meet with me. His voice was weak, but his determination was clear. "Emily, I've made some decisions regarding my estate," he began. "I want to ensure that everything is taken care of." I listened attentively as he explained that he had already distributed his wealth. He had set aside $80,000 for me, specifically for my wedding. The rest of his assets were allocated to various charities and friends who had supported him throughout his life. Michael's plan was to ensure that Jessica would receive nothing from his estate. "I know this might come as a surprise," Michael said, "but I wanted to protect what was important to me and to you. I'm sorry I couldn't do more." I was overwhelmed with emotion. Michael had always been generous, and his decision to support me while leaving Jessica with nothing was both heartbreaking and revealing. I understood why he had made the choice, given Jessica's behavior and the impact it had on him. A few months later, Michael passed away, and the funeral was an emotional affair. Jessica's conduct was shocking and disrespectful. She showed up wearing a diamond necklace that clearly hadn't come from Michael's wealth and spoke openly about her expectations of inheriting a fortune. Her comments were jarring and insensitive, especially given the circumstances. I was left grappling with the reality of Michael's decisions. His will had been clear, and the estate was indeed distributed as he had planned. Jessica was left with nothing but debts and disappointment. The contrast between her expectations and the harsh truth of her financial situation was striking. In the days following the funeral, Jessica's desperation became apparent. She attempted to claim any part of Michael's estate, but it was all gone, used up in charitable donations and gifts to close friends. She was left facing a reality far different from the luxury she had anticipated. I felt a mixture of sadness and resolve. My brother's passing had left a void, but his decisions had revealed the depth of his character. As Jessica's struggles became public, I was determined to honor Michael's memory by focusing on the values he had instilled in me, values of loyalty, love, and integrity. In the end, I realized that Michael's choices were not just about money, but about preserving the principles that mattered most. His actions spoke louder than words, and as I moved forward with my life, I knew I had to stay true to those principles, despite the challenges that lay ahead. The days following Michael's funeral were a whirlwind of emotions and decisions. The initial shock of his passing had begun to settle, but the reality of his decisions was hitting hard. Jessica's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic and desperate. She had always been about appearances, but now, her attempts to salvage her lifestyle seemed almost pathetic. It didn't take long for the news of Michael's will to spread. Jessica's attempts to access Michael's estate had been fruitless. She had discovered that the assets had been depleted, donated to charities, and given to Michael's close friends. It was a harsh wake-up call for someone who had expected a lavish inheritance. One afternoon, I received a call from Jessica. Her voice was strained, and there was a sense of urgency in her tone. "Emily, can we talk?" she asked. "I really need your help." I was taken aback, but agreed to meet her at a local cafe. When we sat down, Jessica's appearance was striking. She looked disheveled, a far cry from the glamorous persona she had always maintained. Her eyes were red from what seemed like days of crying. "Emily, I don't know where to turn," Jessica began, her voice trembling. "Michael's will. Everything is gone. I'm left with nothing. I need help." I listened as she explained her situation. She had been forced to sell her mansion and was now struggling to pay off mounting debts. Her once luxurious lifestyle was rapidly disintegrating, and she seemed genuinely overwhelmed. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for her. Losing Michael had undoubtedly been devastating, and the subsequent financial collapse was another blow. "You know, Jessica," I said cautiously, "Michael had his reasons for what he did. He wanted to make sure that his legacy was about more than just money. He cared about the people who supported him." Jessica's eyes narrowed, and she looked away. "I know he had his reasons, but it doesn't make this any easier. I thought he would leave me something, anything." "I'm sorry," I said. "I wish I could do more to help, but everything was distributed according to Michael's wishes. It's been a difficult time for everyone." Jessica sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "I understand. I just wish I had known earlier. I wouldn't have wasted so much time on frivolous things." Despite her words, it was clear that Jessica was struggling to come to terms with her new reality. I could see the cracks in her facade, and while part of me wanted to offer support, I couldn't forget the way she had treated Michael and the rest of the family. As weeks went by, Jessica's situation continued to deteriorate. She had to take on multiple jobs, something she had never imagined herself doing. It was a stark contrast to the life she had led before. She even reached out to me a few more times, asking for advice on how to manage her debts or find additional work. Each time, I offered as much support as I could, but the reality was that her financial woes were beyond what I could resolve. My life was moving forward, too. I was busy planning my wedding, an event that was both joyful and bittersweet. Michael had been so excited about it, and his absence was deeply felt. Yet, as I prepared for this new chapter, I tried to focus on honoring his memory by staying true to the values he had embodied: kindness, generosity, and integrity. One evening, as I was going through wedding preparations, I received a call from Jessica. Her voice was calmer than before, and there was a resignation in her tone. "Emily, I'm calling to thank you. I know I haven't been the best to you, but your kindness has been appreciated." I was surprised by her change in tone. "Jessica, I'm glad you're finding some stability. I hope things improve for you." "Thank you," she replied. "I've learned a lot through all this. I'm trying to make things right, to be better." Her words seemed sincere, and while I remained cautious, I couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand the deeper lessons in Michael's decisions. As the wedding day approached, I felt a mix of emotions. Michael's absence was a profound loss, but his legacy of love and responsibility was guiding me through this time. Jessica's struggles were a reminder of the consequences of valuing material things over genuine connections. The days went by, and life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. As I walked down the aisle on my wedding day, I thought of Michael and the impact he had on my life. I was determined to live by his example, cherishing love and loyalty above all else. Jessica's journey was still unfolding, but I hoped that she would eventually find a way to rebuild her life with the lessons she had learned. For me, the focus was on moving forward, honoring Michael's memory, and embracing the values he had stood for. The story was far from over, but the lessons learned from Michael's choices and Jessica's challenges would stay with me forever. As time went on, the weight of Michael's loss continued to be felt, but life had a way of pushing us forward. I was determined to honor his memory and the values he held dear. The wedding had been a poignant event, filled with joy, but also marked by his absence. It was a bittersweet celebration, but I found solace in knowing that I was making choices that would make him proud. Jessica's life, meanwhile, was a constant reminder of the harsh realities of prioritizing wealth over meaningful connections. She continued to struggle with her financial situation, and though she reached out occasionally, her situation seemed to be a continuous uphill battle. I often wondered if she would ever find peace or redemption. One day, as I was going through some old family photos and mementos, I stumbled upon a letter from Michael that he had written to me before his passing. In it, he expressed his love and pride for me and shared some final thoughts about his decisions and his hopes for the future. Reading his words, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Michael had always been a guiding light in my life, and even in his absence, his wisdom was still guiding me. He had written about the importance of living a life true to oneself, about valuing genuine relationships over material possessions, and about making the most of every moment. I made a promise to myself to live by those principles. My life was changing, and I wanted to ensure that I was staying true to the values that Michael had instilled in me. Jessica, on the other hand, seemed to be reaching a breaking point. She called me one day, her voice more subdued than I had ever heard it. "Emily, I've hit rock bottom. I'm doing everything I can to make ends meet, but it's not enough. I need help, and I don't know where to turn." I could hear the desperation in her voice. Despite everything that had happened, I couldn't turn my back on her. Michael had always been about family, and while Jessica's actions had hurt deeply, I knew that turning away now would only perpetuate the cycle of bitterness. I agreed to meet her at a small cafe downtown. She arrived looking tired and worn, her usual polish replaced by a look of exhaustion. We talked for hours about her struggles and the things she wished she had done differently. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also cathartic. Jessica seemed to be coming to terms with her mistakes and was genuinely seeking a way to rebuild her life. "I've realized," she said quietly, "that I need to change. I've been so focused on what I've lost that I haven't seen what I can still gain from starting over." I nodded, understanding the weight of her realization. "It's a tough journey, Jessica, but sometimes starting over is the only way to truly move forward." Michael wanted us to cherish what we have and learn from our experiences. We parted ways with a sense of tentative hope. I knew that Jessica's road to recovery would be long and difficult, but I hoped that she would find the strength to rebuild her life and learn from her past. As for me, I continued to embrace the values that Michael had taught me. I worked hard, not just in my career but also in my personal life, striving to be a source of support and kindness for those around me. My marriage was a source of joy, and I made sure to nurture it with love and respect. Life continued to unfold with its ups and downs, but through it all, I kept Michael's memory alive in my heart. His lessons about love, loyalty, and the true meaning of wealth guided me every day. I found fulfillment in giving back to the community, supporting those in need, and staying true to the principles that mattered most. Jessica's journey was a sobering reminder of the consequences of valuing material things over genuine relationships. Her struggle and eventual attempt to turn her life around were a testament to the hard truths of life and the possibility of redemption. In the end, the story of Michael, Jessica, and me was one of learning and growth. It was about understanding the true meaning of wealth and the importance of valuing what really matters: love, family, and integrity. As I looked back on everything that had transpired, I felt a sense of peace knowing that I was living a life that honored Michael's memory and the lessons he had left behind. The journey was far from over, but with each step, I was guided by the values that Michael had cherished. And as I faced the future, I did so with the knowledge that even in the midst of challenges, there was always a chance for renewal and growth.